Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Mount Olympus, we are here to discuss the Herculean Physique, and I'm with the one and only, the legendary, the erudite Ryan Foley. Greetings, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you?
I'm looking forward to today's show, looking at your notes. I'm excited.
Good, good. In the words of Rodney Dangerfield, I'm okay now, but last week I was in rough shape, rough
Ooh,
shape.
sorry
But
to hear that.
yeah, it's just life. We'll get to that later on, just to kind of give people a little bit of hopefully a boost if they're like me and they've been down in it. Hopefully we'll give some inspiration for that. But one of the things that I wanted to jump into here straight away so that way we're not burying the lead. So we come on here every month and we go through and we talk about the various journey that we've been on, the parallel paths, and sometimes where we've gone in different routes, and other
Mhm.
times where we've found those same universal truths, even though we're not connected with one another. And so, in going through on this journey that I've been on, my goal has always been the same, and that's to come on here and hopefully make someone's journey a little bit shorter. Not necessarily this is gonna be one of the most difficult journeys that you've ever been on, but that doesn't mean that we can't come along and make it just a little bit easier by giving people advice, things that I've learned personally, and things that I've gone to put into practice. So that way they can go through and hopefully adopt it into their own program. And if they can, great. If it's not something that works for them, maybe we're spinning up their gym IQ so that way they can kind of adapt it into the program that they're working on. So one of the things that I find really fascinating, and so when I go through and I explain this, it's going to seem like a really simple concept after the fact, but until you come along and explain to someone something, we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
So, in going through and explaining this, what I'm curious to find out, so this is a program that has worked for me. And so I'm curious to know what your thoughts on it, if you've done something similar with this, and if not, what are your tactics whenever you go to approach something like this? So one of the things that I'm fascinated with is metadata. So metadata just really simply is it's studying studies is probably the easiest way I know how to describe it. It's so you go through and you do a science experiment and you want to be able to go through and replicate those results. If you can't replicate the results, obviously something was wrong in the experiment. So what they do is they take a variety of these experiments that different people have performed at different times. They lump all the information in together. And so that way they're looking for, you're kind of isolating some of the radicals that may throw off the data. And so hopefully you can go through and combine all this together. So you're kind of studying what the people are studying and how they're doing it. And if you can come to a conclusion, then you're in a pretty good spot and you can say, well, this is scientifically accurate. So one way that would be so one study is a person's opinion, but metadata analysis is asking everyone and seeing what the majority of the people say. So there's this new metadata analysis that has come out just this year. It's been so recently published, and pretty much the general agreement is 3 minutes is how much you need in order to recover from fatigue whenever you're working out. So you go through and you lift a certain amount of weight. You lift hopefully to failure, and then when you set the weight aside, your whatever muscle group that you're working needs 3 minutes in order to recover. So in order to recover properly, any much more than that, you're not going to see a tremendous spike in improvement. 3 minutes is kind of that nice sweet spot, and so it's different for different muscle groups because some groups are bigger than others, some are faster recovering than others. So, but 3 minutes tends to be a little bit of the general consensus where, okay, so if you rest for 3 minutes. But one of the things that I have found disconcerting is that whenever I'm in the gym and I'm looking around kind of at other people, I'm seeing this issue where everyone is on their phones. They perform a set and then they're on their phones for 3 minutes. And I don't think that's necessarily the most strategic way to go about getting your workout in. For me, it's about efficiency. And so for me, it's constant movement. So one of the things that we've talked about here in the past that really bears repeating, in my opinion, is that I'm a big fan of antagonistic sets.
Yes.
And so antagonistic sets, if this is your first visit with us here on the podcast, hi, like and subscribe. One of the things that I like to do, so bodybuilding is about building a total physique. It is so you're developing your entire physique, all not simultaneously, but you're trying to build that complete physique. And so, in my opinion, antagonistic sets are where you can go through. And so, for every push movement that I'm doing, I'm trying to counter that with a pull movement. So that way, I'm getting that nice back and forth movement. I'm developing my back while I'm developing my chest. I know there are some people that prefer like a push day and then a pull day. I'm not a big fan of that. I like to work back and forth. So I go
Mhm.
through and I do these antagonistic sets where I've gone through and I've paired the muscles in such a way that I'm getting that full back and forth. But so again, the way I kind of want to go through and describe this is, I probably should have mentioned this earlier. I need better notes. So high school, it's been a little while for me, but high school was very easy. It was just memorization and regurgitation. That's all they
Mhm.
wanted. Put it in, put it back out. That's all they really wanted. It wasn't until I got to college where they really wanted you to think. And so, in going through, and once you go through, you start thinking critically, then you can start pulling from different classes to do better on a paper. This is kind of the same thing. Okay, so if I believe that antagonistic sets are the best way to develop a full range of motion, and so that way to develop that complete physique, but if we also need to rest our muscles for 3 minutes in order to maximize muscle growth, then I need to combine these two by performing these supersets. And then the supersets can even line into giant sets. So, supersets, very simply explained, it's two exercises performed back to back with no rest in between. So instead, what I've done is I've gone through and I've started to develop what I've been working on here recently is what could be called giant sets. And I know we've talked in the past about how it's great to exhaust those muscles. And so sometimes I'll go through and do two different tricep exercises and stack them back to back. So that way
Mhm.
I'm fully exhausting that muscle. And you can still do that. But what I'm suggesting is that you go through and you pick four different muscle groups. They're almost kind of, they can be paired a little bit, but it's almost they're completely separated from one another. So, for instance, if I'm going to go through and I'm going to do an overhead push, something like a military press, then I'm going to pair that with a lat pull down because that's the basic thing that I've built my superset around. But then at the same time, once we get done with that, let's immediately move into something like, say, a shoulder shrug, where it's just real simple. It's just going through and you're working those traps just by grabbing some dumbbells or a barbell. There's a bunch of different variations. And so I'm going to go through and I'm going to do a trap workout. And then let's throw in, something pretty simple, pretty easy, maybe something like an ab exercise. And so you go through, you do that ab exercise, and then I proceed to do 2 laps around the gym. So by the time you go through and you complete all four of these different exercises, it's now been 3 minutes since your first exercise. So now you're ready to get back into the rotation. So by doing this, and keep in mind, so you do the supersets, you do those back to back with no rest in between. So if you can do all four of these exercises without any rest in between, after you get done with all four, that's where you go through and you take your rest. And hopefully that rest is less than a minute. But by going through and doing just a little bit of timing here and there, what I found is that you start to reach that 3 minute sweet spot fairly early, or so that way you've got plenty of time for, say, your chest to recover. By the time you've done your back, you've done your shoulder shrugs, you've done your abs, and you've walked around. So it is just that constant movement the whole time because I'm trying to go through and burn calories, which I'll get into. But so I was just curious if you have ever used something like this in the past, and or do you use a different tactic whenever you go about your workouts?
I've used what you're describing, and I still use elements of it. But I changed it around. Like right now, I'm doing my traps with my calves. So I have one, two, three, four, five different trap movements that I use. One is like front shrugs, then side shrugs, then back shrugs, and then I'll have rotations back and front. And then I have my calf exercises. So after I've exhausted my traps, I'll do calves for like 3 or 4 sets. And then they get exhausted. I'm not doing it in good form anymore. So I'll go back and do more traps. Sometimes I have do the muscles separately. Sometimes do them together. Sometimes I lump them together in categories. Like every now and then, instead of treating my arms like fingers, hands, grip, uh, wrists, forearms, biceps, triceps, and then whole arms, which are like a hammer curls and Zotmans.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll break it into that much detail. And other times when I'm dealing with heavier weights, I'll have my arms be just one, so I'll do a different number of exercises, make sure I get them all. But I'll do like instead of 12 times 12, 12 sets times 12 rep for each part, like fingers, I'll do my arm like one part because I'm doing heavier weights. So I like changing up a bit. And I also like toys. I have a wide selection of hand grips. Unfortunately, now with my Parkinson's, I can't do things I was doing before. So I can do my easy hand grips, but I had hand grips that went up to 150 pounds of pressure. So unfortunately, at this particular point in time, that's not something that's happening. So I have to restrict the range of weights I'm using for my hand grip exercises. But I love changing things around because once it becomes rote, you stop paying attention and you're just going through the motions, and then you're not stimulating growth or endurance.
So, what are some? So, do you have some unique exercises that maybe aren't so tremendously well known that you're a big fan of? So, because again, once we get to that point where you're right, where the growth kind of begins to stagnate, I mean, we all tend to we build around the basic building blocks, the bench press, the squat, the deadlift, again, the overhead press, the lat pull down, because I'll be quite honest, I can't do pull-ups for reps. So I
I can't do them
resort.
anymore either. The
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one. But so, are there
yeah.
any unique exercises that you like to go to keep things fresh and keep things different?
No, the toys do that, and I can't wait to see how the new toy you found works. But
Sure.
I find like I have something called the Hercules Twister. It's like a spring in the middle and metal rods coming out of it and the handles, and then basically do this. You can uh, do the sides. You can do it at different angles. You can do it upside down, and the chest gets a very thorough workout with that, as well as some parts of your arms and your shoulders. Then I have a thigh machine. I like using that on leg days, and legs too. I break them up. Sometimes both my legs are just one big muscle, and I'll exercise them like in parts, but I'll treat it like one big muscle. And sometimes I'll do each part separately. Sometimes I'll do them all together. Sometimes I'll break it up, like I'll do my traps with my calves. Then I'll do my um, biceps with my back, both upper and lower back, and add hamstring for the legs while I'm doing that. Other times I'll do chest and triceps, and for there I'll do my squats, on the same day that I do that. So I'll rotate it up a little bit, but I don't. I guess my favorite arm exercise is the hammer curl.
Okay.
If I had a favorite, that'd be my favorite. And
Sure.
the one I like too, but I don't do it very often because I don't want to hurt myself with heavier weights, is the Zotman curl. That's a very elegant curl. I really enjoy that.
I think I remember what that is. It involves a rotating as you're, but remind me again what the Zotman curl is.
You start with the dumbbells in front of you, and then you curl one, and you turn the wrist so that it's facing up with the weight. Then you turn it facing down as it goes down, and the other hand you turn up. So you just alternate those back and forth, and that's the Zottman curl. And it's like the hammer; it gets the whole arm, but it does a better job of hitting some of the muscles than the hammer curl does.
Okay, I'll have to work that in. I haven't done that in the past, but that's something that I'll have to go through and add in. Boy, but so one of the things that I wanted to a point that I wanted to hit, um, because so my goal again is to torch fat.
Right,
That's always been my goal. I feel like the muscle is there, but the fat is that layer in between the skin and the muscle. And if we can get that layer as thin as possible, then the muscles are more pronounced. So I am not. I do believe that the bodybuilding aesthetic to me is the most physically appealing. I think there's something about that look. And there are times where so you have to go through and you have to train for the type of body that you're wanting to build.
right.
And whatever people, so there are times where if you, let's say, if you were in the NBA or if you're a cover corner in the NFL, having this massive amount of weight on you because of muscle may actually end up being detrimental because your job doesn't require you to have a tremendous amount of muscle as opposed to say a linebacker or a pass rushing defensive end. And so, but what you need is speed. Speed is your priority. So they're going to go through, they're going to train a little bit differently. Whereas a power lifter, they are solely concerned with getting a weight from one place to another.
To another, yeah.
That's it. That's all they're trying to do. They don't care how they look doing it. They just want to get it there. So they tend to be much bigger. Whereas I like that lean look, that lean and muscular look that we see in a lot of professional wrestlers, that we see in the superhero films, and as you've talked about the statuary that inspires you from the ancient Greeks.
From ancient times, yeah.
So yeah, so I personally feel that's the look that I'm attempting to achieve. It's an extremely difficult thing to do. It is not easy, not impossible, but
No,
it's going to be a long process. But the important thing that I want people to remember whenever they're going in, so I'm trying to keep my heart rate elevated at that fat burning level for preferably the entire time that I'm there in the gym, which means I'm not standing around a lot. I have had people comment to me about how I am constantly in motion. And sometimes it's as simple as so it started for me. I know that one lap around my gym is 100 steps. I know that because I've counted it off. And so there were times where I'd get done with my superset and then I'd take a lap. And so
right,
again, just that constant motion. Then I was like, well, what if I can go through and I can increase the degree of difficulty? So I started carrying weights whenever I'd walk around the gym. And so then it got to a point where I was, carrying some pretty heavy weight and saw what other people were doing. And the idea was, hey, I'm just going to carry one weight in one hand, which is going to cause my body to want to lean over to compensate for that weight. So instead, I've got to shift and stay up to carry that. And it almost becomes an ab exercise because I'm forcing my body to stay up as I go through and take a lap. And so I can either do that with a really heavy weight and then just switching it between hands whenever I start to fatigue. But so the goal is to go through it and constantly keep my heart rate at a level because I do have a limited amount of time. I work out in the mornings just because it's easier for me. So I am constantly facing against the clock. So I want my workouts to be as efficient as possible. But it's very important for people to understand. And again, this is something that sometimes until it gets laid out in front of you, you don't really understand. When you're in the gym, on average, here lately, and we'll dig into this just a little bit later on. So I average about 600 calories is how much I can burn between an hour and about 70 minutes worth of hooking it up. I mean, you're really getting after it. It's about 600 calories, which can sound like a lot, except I could wipe that out with 3 donuts from Krispy Kreme.
right.
So all that work has been gone. So you're not in the gym to go through, and it's not as punishment for what you've eaten. And really, you're not in there to burn calories. You're there to get strong. But by going through and lifting that heavy weight to failure, or I should say, lifting that manageably heavy weight to failure, the calorie burn is going to take care of itself. But really, that's not your goal, is to get in there and burn an excessive amount of calories. You're in there to get strong, to lift the weights, and then let the calories take care of themselves. So it means not standing around. I'm not chatting up the babes. I'm not there to talk with the gym bros. I'm there to work. And so
Right.
that's why I wear those big giant headphones that scream "Leave me alone," and I don't make eye contact, at least as little as possible, because just because I'm there to work. So, but that small amount of energy that you're going to burn in the gym, use that to go through and get strong, as opposed to worrying tremendously about how many calories you're burning, because it's a small amount compared to the rest of the calories that you're burning throughout the day and then even while you're sleeping.
I found that with me, weight loss works better when I'm doing something. It could be counting calories. Like in the past, I found that if I restrict myself from 12 to 1800 calories a day, that was my losing weight, fat weight range. And I found that certain diets, like for instance, the carnivore diet or the Atkins diet or the keto diet, those type of diets, because I'm consuming a lot of protein and a lot of fat and very little carbohydrate, those seem to do it for me. But everybody's different in what's going to work for them and what range they need. So I find that now with my diabetes type 2 that I have to keep under control, and some other things that I'm struggling with my health as well, the fact that I have to go on these diets helps, because the keto diet or the Atkins diet or the high protein, high fat diet, whatever, by whatever name you want to call it, actually helps with my blood sugar
Oh, nice.
and it keeps it down. So right now, I reached the level my doctor thought I wouldn't reach, and I've kept it there. And now I started experimenting with other foods, and that raised it a little bit. So now I have to not be so experimental with these foods and experiment with something else. And you never know, like with diabetes, sometimes something will work and then one day you'll wake up and it won't work anymore and it'll have the opposite effect. So I found, like, for instance, keto cereal.
Oh, okay.
And so I tried it and I figured that would make up for the cake I'm not eating and candy bars I'm not eating. I'll eat like keto cereal. And for a while, it dropped my blood down, even further. And I was like happy as anything. But then after 2 weeks of having like a bowl or two a day, it wasn't lowering the sugar anymore. And in the last week, when I was eating a lot of it, it seemed to actually be raising the sugar. So that's
Mm,
it. Now the thing becomes, okay, it's a treat. Maybe I can have this once or twice a month, but I can't eat it every day anymore. So now I have to get
sure.
back my
Well,
blood
it's
down another 20 points to be where it was. And then I'll be on the strict diet for a while until I'll experiment with something else.
and boy, and that's finding that experimenting. So I know you've commented in the past about how I tend to approach this like a scientist, and I
Yes,
feel
I'm,
like I do,
I'm very impressed.
but I think you're doing the same thing here. You're going through, you're doing the scientific analysis to figure out what works for you. And that's really what we need to do, really, for everyone, because yes, because what works for one person is may not necessarily going to work for them. And so again, it comes down to, in my opinion, you need to do something that you enjoy.
Right.
Admittedly, this week I've been having a little bit of an ankle issue, and so I've tried to go kind of low impact. And so I've taken up rowing, and rowing didn't have near of an impact on it. And so I've really taken to that. I've enjoyed it. But so again, just to find something else to do, since I was a little bit limited, I decided to take up cycling, which, I mean, on a
Uh,
stationary bike, I should say. And just, I've tried it for a couple of sessions now, and it's just not for me. It's just not something that I'm tremendously fond of. So it's kind of a thing. I'll go through and I'll do it in a pinch. But if I have to, it's to do something that you enjoy. I think that's really the key to people's
definitely.
success. But before we move on to the next, just to close out the topic of going through and doing these giant sets by going through and constantly keeping your heart rate elevated. I'm very lucky in that usually the gym that I use is not very crowded whenever I go because I'm going early in the morning. So that would be one of my pillars whenever it comes through to building a program is the social pillar. So that's the only thing that I would recommend people be very conscientious of, that if you decide to go through and attempt these giant sets, that does require you, depending upon what exercises you're doing, to monopolize a lot of equipment. And so just, be very cognizant of the other, gym goers that are there. Allow them to work in if they need to, or, no one, it's no big deal to let someone know how many sets you've got left. And so you just try to go there and be a good person and help them out without dominating four different major pieces of equipment while you're going through and trying to get your sets taken care of.
Yeah, I used to like going weird times. And I've also been lucky to find gyms with Olympian names. Like I belonged to the Mount Olympus gym in Bayside when it was open, and that was open until 3 in the morning. So I was often there after 1 in the morning until three. There's nobody in there except occasionally one other person in the staff. So I used to not have to wait for any machine. And then the Olympia gym, which is an old gym when I lived in the Queens Brooklyn border, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lou Ferrigno have exercised there, as well as many other bodybuilding greats. So I used to go there too at odd times. And although that didn't close as late or open as early as the Mount Olympus gym, still, if you went to like off hours, you had the gym mostly to yourself. So I find that that works. I don't like hogging up machines either. And I hated it when people did, where I couldn't get in the exercise that I wanted because two people are capitalizing it and not moving because they're talking on phones or socializing in between their sets.
Yeah, man, I know exactly what you're talking about. We're pretty lucky in that the gym that I have migrated to is a 24-hour facility. You use a key fob to get in, and as long as the internet is working, then I've got 24-hour access. But I will
Well,
say that, so if you are considering starting a program, man, it's the gym at 6 a.m. is very different from the gym at 5 p.m. So if you
yes.
if you go at 5 p.m. and you're not feeling the vibe, yeah, if you can find those off hours to where you can go through and have the place to yourself, yeah, it's a completely different experience when the gym is empty.
And you have to be careful on gym membership. They closed the gym here in my area for being deceptive in its practices. And we found another gym, and it wasn't that far away. So I went inside to check it out. And outside there were signs that it's $15 a month, which is doable and well worth it. But that was only for such a limited amount of um, exercises that you could do at limited times that it really wasn't worth it. And to exercise there
Oh, okay.
as accustomed exercising, if you added everything up, it would have been like $100 a month, which I didn't feel was realistic for me at this particular point in time.
Yeah, that sounds that sounds a tad steep. Well, man, oh, I don't have enough. Well, next month I'm going to go through and make a note about how that. So a friend of mine sent me an article because just that sharing of data, that sharing of stories, and he's a police officer, and he sent me an article about why it's important to go through and work out as a police officer, and I think it applies to everything. But I don't think I didn't think we would have enough time to get to it, so we'll talk about that in December because I think that'll be a part of a good topic to discuss. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about, just because of everything that's been going on in the world, without getting too political, because I don't want to alienate anybody. But
All right.
so on November 6th, if people saw it, there was in the Oval Office, they held a press conference, and it was talking about lowering the cost of drugs,
Yes.
specifically the GLP-1s, which the
Yes.
Ozempic and Wegovy.
I watched that too.
And so
It's
the reason why it
AHA
was
movement, the Make
okay,
America
so
Healthy
I
Again.
right. But at that press conference, there was a representative for one of the drug companies who passed out.
Yes.
And so everyone's like, well, okay, but he turned out to be okay, so everything was fine. But so during the press conference, Dr. Mehmet Oz, so another reason why it went on everyone's radar is because he misspoke, and he said that okay, so he promised that Americans would lose 135 billion pounds by the midterm elections. And people started going through and doing the math. And so that's like, so every American would have to lose 400 pounds. That doesn't seem so. Obviously, he had misspoke. And they later came out and corrected the information that he said. And it was actually supposed to be 135 million pounds. And that's
Okay.
because Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk are planning on significantly decreasing the cost of these GLP-1 medicines.
Right.
So the idea is great in theory. I will say, so I'm here in Oklahoma, and the Cherokee Nation has figured it out. So they went through, and in their clinics, they have it's kind of like gym light. It's more like what's called a wellness center as opposed to a gym. A few minor pieces of equipment, a little bit of stuff here and there, not necessarily, as grand as a full scale commercial gym, but it had enough stuff if you were just getting started. I think that was it was designed to get people in the mood or used to working out. So we'll give them some light weights, and then they'll build up to it later on. And so the idea was, hey, the Cherokees are going to spend a little bit of money now. We'll get our people in the gym, and it will be less expensive for us with their medical problems further on down the road. So it was a great program. It's still in place. And I was actually using that gym whenever I started on my journey. We changed our office locations. Then COVID really messed everything up. And so that's
Yes.
when I switched to the commercial gym that I'm currently working out at. So I'm very happy there. But so again, this is not me. Obesity is bad. I understand that. And so there are problems that come along with it. Obesity can lead to heart disease and renal failure. And I don't think anyone's out there is pro obesity. But by them going through and lowering the cost of these GLP-1s, I'm afraid there could be some problems if people go through and jump on this. And I think that the cheaper that they make it, the more people are going to jump on it thinking that it's going to be this miracle cure.
Right.
And I know one person specifically that they're on this medication. But the problem is, so, and I want to say this respectfully, but the artist in me. So if you look like a bag of milk and you go through and you take all these weight loss drugs, essentially what it does, it suppresses your appetite so you don't eat as much. But if you're not eating the right things, you're just going to be a smaller bag of milk. And I know that's not nice for me to say, but just to illustrate my point. And so protein rules my diet. It's the cornerstone of every meal that I have. And I'm afraid that if I got on Ozempic, I would look like a beast after a few months because I know how to eat. But I'm afraid that the people who are jumping on these things, they don't know how to eat. And maybe that's what got them in trouble in the first place. And admittedly, I'm still overweight. I still need to lose fat. I'm working on it, and it's hard. But I kind of feel like this is a little bit of a cheat. And so what I'm afraid of is that if we massively expand the access to these life-changing drugs, there could be a real risk when people see it as a shortcut and they don't learn the habits to actually build the muscle and sustain health. So there's not enough long-term data to know what the risks are going to be. And so I think we really have to be cautious whenever we're promoting this as a magical fix. I think more than anything, we need like nutrition literacy. And admittedly, nutrition is the one area it is my absolute weakest. I've tried to wrap my head around it, and it's difficult. But you also need real training, because this person who got on this drug, they came to me and said, "Can you help me work out?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, you got to start somewhere, but you've got to eat, correctly." And because they had no muscle mass, and so everything just shrank. Because I mean,
Right.
if your lunch consists of a banana, you've got to go through. So again, it goes back to the whole point is we want to go through, we want to build strength, we want to build health more
Right.
importantly. But if you're going to go through and do that, you've got to do it by eating the right foods, doing the right exercises, as opposed to just taking the fat shop drug and thinking that it's going to fix everything.
I'm of the same mind. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not any of these professional things, but I'm concerned about my health. And I've been active for all of my life to one degree or another in trying to be as healthy as I possibly can be. And when I heard that they were making a new initiative to make everyone healthier, regardless of the politics of the people involved, I'm all for trying to help everybody attain a greater degree of of health and to lose excess fat, because the excess fat opens us up to various diseases, cardiovascular diseases, and so forth. So I'm all for it. So I watched it, and I was questioning that particular way of doing it rather than teaching people how to eat properly, and this way, the fat medication can help them lose some of the weight. But if they're already doing everything else right, the habits that gave them the weight in the first place, if you don't address them, they're going to persist. And all somebody needs to do is have an
Right.
anxious day or an anxious week or an anxious month. And that happens. And then all of a sudden, they gain the weight back. There was a show, My 600 Pound Life. I learned about it through, it popped up in my internet feed on YouTube. So I watched a few episodes, and they had an approach there that was based on calorie counting mostly to help people lose the weight. And they would help people with the different surgeries, like putting a balloon inside their digestive area so that they're not hungry, and getting rid of extra skin once they've lost the weight. But before they would do these surgical options, they would make sure the person had lost an amount of weight on their own, anywhere from like 40 pounds to 400 pounds. They wanted to get rid of that and teach the good habits that won't put that back on, and then that helped them with whatever surgeries they needed. So again, I'm going to follow that. I remember there was at one point when we lived in Pennsylvania, President's Council website online, that whatever you were doing, you made an account, you typed in what you were doing, it would calculate how many calories you burned, it would calculate how much weight loss you can have, and it would make sure you met your target goals every day. It was a very simple thing, and I was very saddened when they discontinued it a couple of presidents ago, and it hasn't come back. So anyway, I'm going to follow it because it concerns me, but I'm not going to try any weight loss supplements to get rid of the remaining weight that I'm currently working on. I'll slow and steady wins the race as far as I'm concerned.
I believe the same thing. And I also think that I think working out is not just about losing weight. I think it's about developing that physique through hard work. Again,
Yes.
if it was easy, everyone would do it. And so to me, if you are achieving that through, be it either through weight loss medication in order to look tremendously ripped, or to use steroids in order to increase your muscle mass, again, I just don't think people will appreciate it as much, because to me it feels a little bit like cheating to get there. And
Right.
so whereas, but with the hard work, it's not, because there was a moment when I was going through this journey where my thinking kind of started to change, and it was less about looking a certain way, as opposed to, before I couldn't do this, now I can do this. And so with bodybuilding and with weightlifting, you can see, you have the physical evidence right there in front of you. Whereas this was my max lift X amount of weeks ago. This is my max lift now. It's greater than this, so therefore I am getting stronger. You have
Stronger.
that
Yes.
tangible, you have that tangible evidence right there in front of you. And so what I've found is that success only wants you, success the success only begets more success. The more you get, the more you want. And so the harder you work for it, as opposed, and
Right.
I'd rather do that than going through and taking a shot.
Yeah, and also when researching and experimenting things, and this is a cautionary tale, and I've shared it endlessly, but I'll share it again. Uh, I when we lived in Pennsylvania, we had a house in the woods, and we had a really big basement. So by going to free cycles and garage sales and thrift stores, I managed to put together a great gym. I had two benches. I had a leg press machine. I had a squat rack, and I had two universals. And I had a basement gym, and I put mirrors up and posters, and it was phenomenally great. And I wanted to get really, really big, but I didn't want to take any enhancement, performance enhancement drugs. And so I stuck initially with the vitamin supplements, with protein shakes and things like that. But that wasn't doing very much. So I decided to study what bodybuilders were doing before steroids became the thing to do in professional bodybuilding and wrestling and other type of entertainments. And I discovered consistently that drinking a gallon and a half of milk every day and eating like half a dozen oranges is what a lot of people did during the heyday of the sword and sandal era. And I kept running into this information again and again. So I decided, since that it's consistent, I'm going to try that. Now, I was lactose intolerant, so it took me a while to build up to being able to drink that much milk. And I would eat the oranges. I like navel oranges. So I used to get navel oranges. And I looked great. For a while, I was meeting my strength goals, and I looked more like a bodybuilder than I've ever looked in my entire life. Then I started falling down stairs. And within a number of months, a small number of months, I lost all the muscle that I built on. And I discovered that I'd given myself type 2 diabetes because milk has a lot of sugar in it. So do oranges. So by
Right.
drinking a gallon and a half of milk every day and eating half a dozen navel oranges, imagine the amount of sugar that I was pouring into my system every day. So even though my intentions were good and I'd researched it and made a decision based on the best of my understanding and my knowledge, in the long term, it was the wrong decision to make. So that's why I want to caution people. We're sincere in sharing our experiences, what worked, what didn't work for us, but um, you know, research everything. Talk to your doctor. I've had doctors who are very sympathetic with my trying to take control of my health, and I've had others who told me I'm wasting my time and that I should just focus on taking medications. So, you'll get different advice from different people, and of course, you have to make your own decisions. But seek opinions beyond your own, because no matter how learned you are and how wise you are, there are certain things we can't know until we experience results that show us one way or another that this does or does not work for us.
It's a fantastic point. It really is. And man, I'm sorry that you had to learn the hard way about the milk and the oranges. And man, I hadn't really planned on this, but so what you brought up, it dovetails in quite nicely into something that I'd like to talk about. Because again, this is just something that happened to me last week. So very fresh on my mind, and in another circumstance, maybe we wouldn't even be talking about this. But since you have afforded me this platform, I feel like I need to use it so that way I can share the story. So that way people, hopefully, I kind of hope people don't relate, but if they do, then they can go through and they can use this information. So I'm a big fan of professional wrestling, and it was a couple months ago. One of my favorite wrestlers right now is a gentleman by the name of L.A. Knight, and he comes out and he cut this promo to the cameras where he was basically just explaining that, man, if you ever feel like he was talking to the men, he was like, men, if you ever feel like you need to cry, you need to let that out because it's not good. It's not healthy for you to hold that inside. And if you need to go through and cry, it doesn't make you any sort of less of a man. And so I was like, wow, that was really amazing. Because I mean, he's obviously a voice that a lot of young kids are going to pay attention to. And so one of the things that I experienced last week, which again goes back to the Rodney Dangerfield at the beginning of all this, is so anxiety is a very real thing that I
Mhm.
think all of us struggle with from time to time because life is never. It'd be so much easier if I just had that one problem. If I had that one great white circling around me that I can pay attention to and keep my eye on, it'd be a lot easier. But instead, life tends to come at us like a school of piranha. And
Yes.
instead, it's hitting us from all sorts of little tiny bites from a bunch of different directions. And you turn to try to swat one away, and two more are going to get you from behind. So, um, we're trying to go through and we're trying to deal, and we live in anxious times. And so I monitor my progress in the gym with my Apple Watch. And so currently I am on an active streak. It goes through and it measures three different things: the amount of times that I'm standing. I have to stand for a minute in order for it to count. For every hour, it also counts my active calories and it counts my exercise minutes that I'm doing for exercise. So currently, and I had to write this down because there's no way I'd remember all of it, but so I am currently on a 1,058 day streak, which is 2.9 years, for meeting my move
All
goal
right.
every single day, which for me, I set at 600 active calories. I haven't done the math yet, but I think it's probably because I put this on, it was a Christmas gift 3 years ago. So on Christmas, I'm going through, and so ever since to hit that goal of 600 active calories. So now, as I mentioned in the past, if I'm lucky, I can get to 600 calories burned in that hour 70 minutes that I go through and I work out each day. But if I don't go and work on the few days where I don't go and work out, I'm constantly stressed where it's like, oh, did I hit that 600? Because I want to keep that streak
Mhm.
going. But so typically on average, I keep in mind I work in an office. And so on average, if I don't work out, I burn about 600 active calories each day because of my lifestyle. It admittedly, it is a lot of sitting, it's a lot of working at the keyboard. But so on average, I burn about these are active calories. So I get to count this against my caloric totals that I'm taking in. And so the more active you are, the more food you can eat. But so if I can do 600 calories in that hour that I'm working out and then 600 calories throughout the day, it's not outside of the realm of possibilities for me to come along and do 1,200 calories in a day. So I double my move goal. I get a little award, but usually that 1,200 doesn't show up until pretty close to the end of the day when I'm getting ready to go to bed. And so the other day was Wednesday. And so I had to go through and do my tracking. And so I was suffering from what I called a stack of anxiety. It was just, there's all this stuff going on in my life that I have absolutely no control over. So there's nothing that I can do to fix the problems that I'm dealing with. I just have to ride these things out. And it's a whole host of variety of things of life. And so I'm going through and I'm working. And so for that particular day, so again, it was a Wednesday. By the time I got to the end of the day, I had 1,513 active calories. So about 300 more than I'm usually used to. And I had 99 minutes of activity that was counted as exercise. And I stood for 15 hours, not all at once, but for 1 minute, for 15 hours, I was standing. Going through breaking down the data a little bit more, I took 10,431 steps for a total distance of 5.10 miles. So I
Wow.
need more data, but on average, I walk about 4.5 miles a day. Not a tremendous amount. Okay, but so then I went and I started to break this down because so I hit that 1,200 goal, or the goal of so I'm sorry, man, I just lost it. The active calories. So the 1,200 active calories, I got to that total at about 2 o'clock that afternoon. And so, and I was like, man, boy, I'm really, I'm going here. And so, but so to break it down, I went through and I studied my activity that I did in the gym that particular day. So that night before, I didn't sleep very well. So I only rode for 11 minutes. And typically, I try to warm up by doing 20 minutes worth of rowing. But I was probably pretty exhausted because I didn't sleep very much the night before. So then I worked out with weights for 38 minutes. But I don't remember what muscle group I hit. And then I closed out with steady state cardio for 21 minutes, which is me just doing my mile because I'm trying to get to 500 miles in 2025. So that was a total of 70 minutes worth of exercise while I was at the gym. And that's not an astronomically high total of distance that I walked. Again, 5.10 miles when I usually average about 4.5. So it wasn't tremendously out of the norm that I usually do. Yet throughout the day, I racked up 29 additional minutes where my levels were so high, my watch counted it as exercise. And keep in mind, and so again, I work in an office, so this is me sitting around, and so the admittedly, I said I was fighting from underneath, which is I was in an underdog position, and I'm fighting to climb out of this hole that I'm in.
Mhm.
And so again, I'm fine. I don't want people to be like, oh God, get him to a psychiatrist. So man, I was struggling that day with all the stuff that was going on. Around 4 o'clock, I caved and I talked to my coworker and I kind of trauma dumped with her about just all the stuff that was going on. And unfortunately, it's things that I don't have any sort of control over. So I'm stressed about it almost even more. But so in going through and using this Apple Watch that I have raved about for 3 years now, it allowed me to break down my numbers to go, holy cow, my heart level and all that sort of stuff was spiked so high because of the anxiety that I was feeling. And then I went through, so I started crunching the data to figure out, well, what happened to me on that day? And so by going through and doing this, so suddenly I used a piece of gym equipment for something that I didn't even intend. But it allowed me so and but here I am, I can talk about it now. I'm not breaking
Uh-huh.
out into a cold sweat. It's everything's fine. But it was like I used this science to figure out, hey, what was going on with me. So I say all this so if viewers, if you're out there and if you're suffering from anxiety, man, it can pile onto you and it can stress your system out so much that your Apple Watch is going to sit there and go, wow, he did half an hour worth of exercise extra today as opposed to what he normally did. So it is a very real thing. And so that's
Yes.
where, man, again, going back to LA night, man, hey, if you need to cry, you go ahead and cry. If you're anxious, and anxiety is a very real thing, it's not something to be ashamed of, especially when you're coming along with a situation. It can be, health issues with other people. It can be, stuff at your job. Women, don't get me started. But so there's all this stuff that kind of goes through and piles on top of you. And so here I am looking around and going, man, but I went through and used the science to try to figure out what was going on. And so again, if you're not used to all this cardiovascular activity and your heart rate is so bad because of the anxiety that your tech is telling you that you're working out, that's very much a real indication that sometimes we need to go through and take, a little simple step back, breathing exercises, finding that way to get yourself centered. Maybe it's coming on and talking with a friend, about the stuff that you've been going through, even though no one can provide you with any answers. If you can't fix the situation, there's not a whole lot that you can do. But sometimes just talking about it is
Right.
very helpful. So I found that information fascinating. I hope it's helpful for someone out there who might be struggling right now. And if so, man, I'm happy to have gone through and broken down the numbers for you.
Thank you. And it is important. We live in the very stressful times, and there's always something going on, and things are set up to grab your attention and make you afraid or anxious. So it's very easy to understand how to get there. I'm usually very chill. My background profession was in mental health. I was a mental health counselor. I was a therapist. So I've had a lot of positions in the mental health field. I was a vocational counselor. I worked in workforce development. I used to create student and volunteer programs for health settings. So I've done all that, and I meditate several times a day. So I'm usually pretty chill, and it takes a lot to really throw me off my equilibrium. And there have been a couple of times during this particular span of time that I felt anxiety. And I haven't felt anxiety this strong since I was a teenager. So I know that one of the tricks of dealing with mental states that you don't want to wallow in or get stuck in is to remind yourself that even though this seems like it's going to last forever, it's not. And then while you're in it, to ask yourself, what exactly am I anxious about? Or what exactly am I fearful of? Or what exactly? And the anxiety or the fear or the whatever you're experiencing will help you get you to that answer. And I'm also attention deficit disordered. And I learned once I read a few
Okay.
books on attention deficit disorder, I realized that my brain works slightly differently. So I started using my brain differently. It was set up differently, so and programmed differently. So I found out that I could use attention deficit disorder for my advantage. And part of attention deficit disorder is having what do you call it, like a manic depressive type of state also, and it's not as extreme as manic depression, but it has ups and downs. And I learned how to ride these like a roller coaster, so that if I was feeling down, again, I knew that that wasn't going to last long, but here I am now. So I knew it was going to pass. And I'd ask myself, what am I unhappy about? And they would tell me what I'm unhappy about. The thoughts, the images. And then when that passes, you get um, a state where you could accomplish anything. It's like I could accomplish anything part of it, the manic, I guess, part of it. And that told me that I could accomplish anything because I had the energy to do it now and I had the confidence to do it. So I used that to show me what needs to change in my life and then to give me the energy and the belief that I need to make it happen. So nothing works perfectly. So it didn't always work perfectly, but it worked very well. So with anxiety too, a lot of it was free form anxiety, and it was mostly because of all the news that's been coming in. And we have everything with the tariffs, and I'm a retired person who still works occasionally, but I'm nowhere near drawing in the money that I was drawing in while I was working. So there's all sorts of things like that. There's the taxes are going up. So all those are real things, but my being anxious about them wasn't going to help them at all. It wasn't going to give me superpower abilities to deal with it. But it was important to know that I felt that way, and it was important to know that I was concerned about it. So it freed up the anxiety and gave me energy to do what I could do. I can't do everything, but I could learn more. I could talk to people to see what programs there are that aren't in danger of being defunded or minimized. I could renew my political friendships, I guess, to see if anybody there knows anything that can be done. And then I share that information. I've been posting information on food banks. I've been posting information on farmers markets. I've been posting information on whatever programs are appearing. And they're for my local community, but everybody has a local community. So they could take the hint from there and then look what's local to them and see if there's something similar. And then, like with the exercise, I've created some groups so that people can share what they find. So maybe it'll help somebody else. So all we can do is the best that we can do. This experience life doesn't last forever either. Uh, so I'm not going to worry about it. And if while we're meeting our challenges and trying to conquer the fighters that are challenging us, the warriors that are trying to hold us back and oppress us, if we can share what we learned with other people and they can do the same, or they can adopt it, or they can find out that doesn't work for them and they can do something different, we all benefit. So that's how I've been approaching it. But you're right. If people are feeling something, don't ignore it. Acknowledge at least that you're feeling that and try to find out what exactly it is that you're reacting to. Don't start having fights with your loved ones or doing inappropriate things at work. Don't start making snap decisions that you might regret. But be aware.
And so that it's a fantastic point that you just made. And to stitch this back with a previous part, so that I didn't even think about tying these two things together in this way until right here in this moment. But I mean, you brought up a really great point. So acetaminophen. So a fever in an infant is not necessarily something to be afraid of. A fever is something that is an indication that something is wrong.
Right.
And so to go through and so to lower that fever, but and that's a temporary fix. We've got to figure out what's wrong. Hey, if you have and believe me, I'm right there with you. If you have if you're stress eating like crazy, again, I'm right there with you. We have to get to the root of that. So again, going back to the Wegovy and the Ozempic, yeah, we need to get to the base problem. And so I think if you go through and you experience this anxiety, I think a lot of times we tend to run from it, or people want to medicate it with a pill. And so, but instead, to be able to turn and face it and say, it's okay for me to feel this way. If something happens to you that's terrible, it's okay to feel sad. You should
Right.
feel sad. I would feel much worse for a person if they go through something really bad and they're just like, whatever, such is life. I mean, it's okay to feel those emotions. It's okay to feel that anxiety. And if you're going through that, that's why I wanted to throw those numbers up there just to let people know, hey, this is physically what you're going through. So that mental condition can actually go through and affect you physically and may go through and wipe you out. So if you're sitting there going, man, why am I so exhausted? Well, yeah, because you just worked out for 30 minutes without even realizing it over the span of this day. So, yes, by all means, if you're feeling those feelings, it's perfectly okay. But being able to wrap your head around what's wrong and then dealing with it. And so, again, it goes back to just like what you said. And I think that's maybe why I've ridden this wave and I'm trying to find my way out of it is, again, this too shall pass, whether
Mhm.
it's something good or something bad. But for now, it's okay for me to be in this highly anxious state
Right.
because of all the bad stuff that's going on. But I just have to have faith that I'm going to be able to go through and ride it all out.
Right. As long as you don't start victimizing
Well,
yourself by believing that you're not capable of meeting this challenge and that reality is going to mow you down. And again, that is a reality. But if you stick yourself there, then that's how you're going to see things. That's how you're going to appreciate. That's how you're going to experience things if you convince yourself of that. So I believe people should try to stay as positive as possible and to do as much as they possibly can. And if you've tried your best, that's all the universe can ask.
and that's all you can do. And sometimes I think the best way to get away from the stress of everything, I'm telling you, get your ass to the gym, go through and lift some weights, block everything else out, get in there, and because it's just you against the weight and the weight doesn't care. So if you go
Right.
through, but I think you'll find this positive attitude after you get done with it. So I know we're running out of time, but just to bookend here, hopefully with the good information with doing the giant sets and going through and the 3 minute rest to go through and build as much muscle as possible, then to bookend it with something that I have found that I thought was really cool. So it's amazing to me how we're still coming up with new exercise equipment all these years later. And as far as I know, these are relatively new. They came across me on my TikTok shop. And so I was like, okay, that's actually pretty interesting. So I've seen at the gym, we have what are called battle ropes. And so these
Mhm.
battle ropes, they're exactly what they sound like. They're basically just long stretches of rope where you're supposed to go through and lift them up and down. And by doing different exercises, you can go through and you can work your shoulders, you can work your abs. It's a whole variety of things. But because of the way that the exercise is designed, you're fairly limited in your range of movement of what you can do because these ropes are going through and connected. So what I found, and this is available on Amazon, they make a variety of different versions of them. But so basically, this is not a weapon. YouTube, it's not a so it is basically it is a cordless battle rope where it is essentially it's the same function as the battle rope. It's got a handle here for you to put your arms through, and then you go through and you treat this thing exactly like a battle rope. It's flexible, so that way you just go through, you make the same movements, but it's very limited in here. And so because it is so small, you can carry it with you pretty much anywhere. It's, if you're going to go on vacation, or if so, you pack it in your bag, carry it along with you. It's not very heavy. This is probably like a couple of pounds, maybe at the most, but because most of the weight is here at the end, you can go through and mimic that same style of movement. Not very expensive for how much they're, for how valuable they are, but by going through, and since it's not limited to the cord, I found that there's a much wider range of movement that I'm able to do. So it's not just the up and downs. I can go through, I can do a chest workout. I mean, it's a little bit, but so once you start going using these things and you start doing sets of 25 and 50, you're going to find yourself working up a sweat. So if you're looking for something new that you think might be interested, yeah, these cordless battle ropes, you can go through, search for them on Amazon. You'll find a bunch of different varieties of them.
And I think Thor in one of his movies was using those ropes, the battle ropes, in an exercise that he was doing.
Yes, I completely forgot about that. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, he did.
Now, what's the best way people can get in contact with you and enter your world? And let people know too that Ryan, when we could coordinate schedules, will not only be sharing his experience with bodybuilding, but also his creative endeavors. And he's a published author, and he's my favorite mythology graphic novelist. So he has a lot of experience and he's willing to share it, and I'm grateful for that.
And I thank you very much for letting me come on here and use this platform to hopefully spread some good. I think that we have tonight, or for whenever people are watching this, but how you promote on your Facebook page is probably the easiest way for people to get in contact with me. And if you're interested in searching my library as far as novels or the graphic novels, comic books that I've done, most of them are available at Amazon.
And in the next episode, we will go over his mythical work again, and also focus on his work with He-Man, with the two video game based Space Ace, I think it was, and Dragon Slayer. Yes, so we're going to
Yeah.
be going over that part of his career next time. So stay tuned. Thank you again, Ryan, and thanks to everybody who is tuning in. Until next time, this is us wishing you joyous journeys and amazing adventures. Good night, everybody, and thank you.